All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this week's episode of the Stage is Mine podcast. I'm your host, Terrance Hill, presented to you by Double E TV. This week, it is my honor and privilege to bring to the program the founder and CEO of Base Orlando, Mandi, Ilene.
Yeah. We gotta rise up. Rise up. Yo. Go for broke, give everything, better yet, give your all. They don't wanna see you win, nevertheless, yo, evolve. Wanna see my demise, you can be in for a surprise. Since the sun ain't about to set, now it's about to rise. Come hell or high water, we gotta rise up. Despite the storms of life, man, we gotta rise up.
It is my privilege and honor to bring to the podcast today, Mandi, Ilene. Mandi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an artist based in Orlando, Florida. I do face and body painting, which is like face painting for events, birthday parties, corporate events, any kind of party. And then body painting for like art shows or music concerts or private photo shoots or, costume, things like that. So I do body painting for all sorts of events as well.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. When did you discover your passion for art?
I mean, I've always painted. I've always drawn. I've always taken all the extra art classes in school. I've always, been that kid that was just happy with crayons in the corner, just coloring by themselves. So since I was young, art was my escape. And then as I got older, it was just that way of trying to find a job that made money, but I could also be creative. And it took me a while to find it. But now that I have, it's been 15, almost 16 years. So it's been pretty amazing to be able to have those two things together.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it specifically about art that drew you towards it?
I'm just like a creative person. So I feel like that if I'm not making something, like that's my passion in life, is to make or build or create in some way, shape, or form. So if I'm not, when I was staying at home with the baby and raising my kids and stuff like that, if I didn't have an outlet to figure out how to be creative or make something, those were the times that were, mentally the worst for me. It's kind of like person who needs to be in nature, not being able to be in nature, or somebody who is a giver who doesn't have anybody to give to. Like art was my thing that I feel like I needed as an outlet in my life. So whether it be, making things with the kids or helping them or painting murals for their rooms or things like that, like I figured out ways to do art no matter where I was in life.
That's awesome. I think I read in your bio, studied cosmetology at one point, correct?
Yeah, that's actually how I kind of broke into face painting. Was I was doing nails and skincare and makeup at a salon, and the salon did a lot of bridal parties, lots of bridal parties. So that was our main kind of business in the spring and in the fall. So we were doing bridal makeover parties. And then I had the idea to start doing kids makeover parties. So like, let's do princess parties for kids. They have birthdays every year. Brides only get married once, twice in their lives. Kids have recurring birthdays. And people have 2, 3, 4 kids. Okay. So we started doing princess parties. And then I face painted for like a festival that came through. One of my friends suggested we do it just to kind of make some money on the side. And then we started adding the face painting into the birthday parties. And honestly, for the first 3 years that I was doing face painting, it was just princesses, just on little girls. Like that's all I knew how to do.
Yeah.
So, and then I got into pregnant belly painting because my friend was pregnant. And then that's how that started, was like more of a body type thing. And then it just kind of whatever I could paint, whoever I could paint, I just started painting and practicing on everyone.
Yeah. So your passion, you saw it kind of shifting from just doing the cosmetology more to the body painting, correct?
Honestly, at that point in time, there was kind of a recession that was going through and people were not able to spend as much money on themselves. But they were spending money on their kids' birthday parties and they were spending money on their children, because when people don't have a ton of money, the moms definitely start not spending money getting pedicures and manicures and things like that. But they still, and they kind of even go overboard for a yearly birthday party because they feel like they couldn't really do that much during the year. So they go overboard. So it kind of was just at this time frame in the economy where people were definitely spending money on birthdays and their kids, but they weren't spending money on themselves. So it kind of just naturally pushed me in that direction.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm sure you always see me liking your work on Instagram. Where do you normally find the people that are interested in becoming, people who want to get painted on?
Kind of like you, like people will, like my work and go through and then they'll let me know like, hey, I would love to be a canvas if you ever needed one. So I get a lot of people who I just meet in real life or I show them my work or whatnot and they volunteer. It's been years since I've started. So I've got like a group of people and fans that will always be interested in painting. So I usually will just post, hey, I need somebody to paint. Is anybody tall, blonde, or whatever specifics that I need for that specific job? I usually will post what I need. I actually have a group on Facebook of models that I've painted before. So when I need to do a professional job, I usually will only paint somebody that I've painted before so that I know that they're good. I know what their body looks like. I know that they're professional. I know they're going to show up on time. So I have a group of models on Facebook that I keep together of people that I've worked with already. So that's where I usually go first.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge of body painting?
I would say the first challenge of body painting is definitely to go someplace where people are not going to see it as an inappropriate type of art. First question, no matter where I go, is it allowed in that town? What kind of coverage do we have to put on that person in order for it to be legal where I'm at? Are we allowed outside? Is this just for inside? We have to make sure that we have coverage in order to share it on social media so we don't get blocked for having a nipple or something like that. So the hardest part to me is almost trying to convince people that what I do is artwork, because I still have people go, oh, body painting, and it's like, it's just art to me. I see people as canvases. I don't see them as anything else. And I mean, once you see my work online, you'll see it. It's you're not looking at that body anymore as an object. You're looking at it as a piece of work. So yeah, I would say the hardest part is either convincing people that it's still a PG type operation, maybe R-rated at times, but it really is pretty appropriate for what you would averagely see in ads and things like that on TV. So yeah, but certain towns have certain limits that I can't paint outside, or I can't have people on display in a store because that town might have a limit as to what is allowed to be seen in that town or district. So That's the first hurdle you have to get over.
Now, the people that are being painting on and, showing their bodies and stuff like that, how do they kind of find that comfort level just to, hey, it's just whatever, no judgment? And then you having to paint all kinds of bodies and stuff like that over time when you first started just doing little princess parties and to transition to doing a full body of a person. How did that kind of whole thing kind of come to place?
All right. Well, so the first question about like people, it definitely is hard to put yourself out there for the first time. But honestly, once they do it the first time, usually they're like, wow, this is way more coverage than I thought this was going to feel like. I feel more covered than I do going in a bathing suit to the beach. So a lot of times it just takes that first time for the person to kind of do it. And I always suggest that anybody on their first body painting do it in private, in a session with just maybe the artist, the photographer, and the model together, to where you're not worried about other people seeing you. You can definitely 100% regulate what photos ever get seen by anybody, if you even want them to be seen by anybody. I do a lot of photo shoots for wives for their husbands, boudoir style shoots. Maybe they're getting like their husband's favorite sports team jersey painted on them for a present or something along those lines. So some people get painted not for anybody else to see except for their partner, but then they might get more comfortable with it. Yeah. But yeah, so a lot of people, I just tell them, get painted in private the first time, see how comfortable you are with the photos afterwards. And then if you decide you want to go out in public and do one of the live events, then that's great. But I wouldn't start with a live event unless you were really comfortable with your body already. Right. So, I mean, even I got painted a couple of times in private first before the first time I ever did a live event. And even my first live event, I had a mask on that to camouflage who I was. And I was being painted by another artist at an event that lots of people I knew were at, but I had a mask on, so nobody knew it was me. It was just completely transformed into something else. And so it was kind of nice to be out there and like see through the mask people that I knew that were staring at me, but they didn't know it was me. Right. So that was fun. Yeah. Now I'm more comfortable.
Yeah, you have a lot of cool work. I mean, I've seen the Spider-Man one, the Incredible Hulk. Some lady was painted like a pumpkin, and all kinds of, cool, artworks that you've done. What was the hardest one in your opinion? Like one that was like, oh my goodness, this is really challenging.
I think the competitions to me are where I put the most challenge basically on myself. because you're trying to level up your art to be with all these other people who are great award-winning artists and people who are up there. And that's the reason I do competitions. And they're usually 5 or 6 hours of a time frame that you get to paint somebody, and you are still rushing in 5 or 6 hours to get everything on. You have to paint every square inch of their body with something. And there's usually headpieces involved or props of some kind, and shoes. And, so you make fancy shoes ahead of time, you bring things to glue to them, and then you make a headpiece of some kind, and you draw out your pictures beforehand, and then you spend 5 hours. Sometimes you get an assistant, depends on the competition, but those ones to me are where I put the most pressure on myself. So those ones to me are the hardest. Like, I'm last hour and a half, I'm like, okay, I still got to do this. I got to still put her eyelashes on. I still got to do this. Those are the most stressful ones to me. But that's why I do it, is because I need that push sometimes to get, my best artwork is in competitions because that's where I put my most effort. So, and a room full of other artists that you have to compare yourself to, or try to at least be the best that you can possibly be, that you can be. So that's where my best work and the most challenging work is at the same time. So
that's awesome. What do your jam sessions consist of?
Usually we'll have jam sessions, we have sometimes private ones, like at people's houses. One of the painters will kind of throw a house party with body painting, and we'll get invited and we'll all go and paint and have a photographer there who will usually come and do photos. And then we also have sometimes public jam sessions where we'll go to a bar or a restaurant with a room, or a club downtown or something. And we'll just have a handful of painters there who will paint a person each. And it's very loose themed. It's, usually kind of whatever. The jams are always whatever you want to practice, then you can come in whatever kind of model you want. There's no real regulations. Jam sessions are just for the artists to be able to work on whatever it is that they want to work on, but also be in the presence of other artists, and then also be able to have a photographer who's there for multiple people. So you don't have to coordinate a single person shoot, which can either cost you money or time, or it's complicated. But so we do jam sessions. It's kind of like a group photo shoot type thing with probably drinking and food, the people who can come stop by and say hi and see what we do. So
your t-shirt says Base Orlando. Tell us about Base Orlando.
So Base is kind of what happened after we started doing jam sessions. So I started parties at people, at my house, and then we started parties in bars with the jams and stuff. And we kind of wanted to take it to the next level. So I started Base as a way to take that art to the stage and make it more of a very official art show, instead of just kind of painting people in a bar. And then what do you do at the end of the night? You're done painting, and then they just kind of put their clothes on and go home. So I made an art show, and it's Base because it's Body Art Showcase and Exhibit. That's what it stands for. We paint for a couple hours before the guests come in. So it's an actual ticketed art show. And we have about usually 10 to 12 artists all painting, 10 to 15 models. Some people might paint 2 as a collaboration or things like that. The guests will come in and watch us paint for the last 2 hours that we're working. And every half an hour or so, we'll have a burlesque dancer go on stage. We have a DJ that's got music. We have a bar. And then each show has a theme. So depending on the theme, there could be art exhibit with different art that's based on that theme. Or we had a circus show with a tarot card reader, or the circus show also had some acrobats. So we kind of have different entertainment that goes on. We always have the burlesque dancers because they're amazing. And then we have some belly dancers that come as well. They do both. And then at the end, when we're done painting, we put everybody up on this. We do a one-way stage show with the body painted models. So each model gets announced with their artist. They come out in the catwalk. Everybody can see the whole thing. Then they get... Sometimes when you're watching people paint, you don't know what they're painting. Why did you do that? What is this theme? So we have a general theme, let's say it's steampunk or something, but I did steampunk Batman the last time we did steampunk. So I had Harley Quinn, steampunkish, and Batman and Poison Ivy all together. And then they walk the runway, and then I walk with them, and then we do photos afterwards. And then guests can take pictures with whatever models they would like to afterwards as well. So they can take them up on the runway, or they can actually get in a photo and take the photo with the model as well. So It's a way for people to be able to actually see body painting live as it's happening, and then watch the stage show, as opposed to just seeing models on a podium and they're dancing or they're standing there posing, but you never saw how that was created. So the reason I created my show was because people seem to love the idea of watching it happen. And I've heard people, and I kept thinking, it's going to be so boring for them to just come in and watch us paint. And I've had people literally like at the end of the night come to me and go, I've been sitting on this stool for 2 hours watching this happen, and you are amazing. And I can't believe the transformation from when I first sat down at the bar
Right.
and just watched you work till the 2 hours later when you put them on stage, how much difference it was from start to finish. So like I said, for me, I thought, oh, this is going to be boring for people to just watch us paint, but they love it. They love seeing the transformation of how and what you do and what tools you use and how you go about painting somebody's knees and legs and thighs and arms and like how we do all of that. People are just interested in the process. So that's why I created the show, was to show people the process of what we go through to get to this point at the end instead of just the end picture.
Yeah, that was my next question. So kind of like, what's your process? Like, I see some of the pictures behind you. So when you're painting somebody's knee or thigh or whatever, and you get one side and you got to start the other side, like how challenging is that? And what's that process like when you were putting all those colors together and making the, drawing the images and stuff?
So the first couple times you do it, it's actually a little challenging to figure out the best position to put the models in to paint what or well. And then now I've done it so many times that I know exactly. And it's funny because the models I work with know exactly as well. So you can either have the model stand up on a chair and you can paint their legs that way. Oftentimes I just sit Indian style on the floor and I just, paint their legs that way. And I have them turn their legs out like a ballerina and different things. There's lots of different positions you have to put people in order to get all of the spaces. Everything starts with the base coat. So normally the base coat would be a hand painted coat. So you would take like a fat round brush and be putting a base layer on them. And then after that, you would sketch where the designs are. Sometimes you sketch first, depending on what the design is, but base coat, and then you have to put some details on it. And then if you're airbrushing, then you can add in the airbrush element to blend the colors together, or maybe use stencils and put the colors down. And then after that, you would do your lines, and then any details like glitter or gems or decorations, then that would come last. So yeah, it's definitely a process. And in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm on the base coat layer. Okay, I'm on the details layer. Okay, I'm almost to the line work layer. And it's kind of like, I know how long each step should take me and try to space myself accordingly through the night so that I can get it done on time and not waste too much time. Like, oh man, I'm still base coating. What am I doing? I'm an hour in, So you have to kind of pace yourself, but there's like a process to all of it. And like I said, that's kind of what people like to come and see is they see it go from a blob, just like some colors thrown on a body, to like this blobbish kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you throw the lines on, they're like, whoa, that's what that is. It's really cool to see the whole process take place.
Now, for the people that's being painted on, I mean, I've seen, for example, people, sit down and be drawn, and that, they got to stand still, and the person that's drawing them want them to kind of stand still for a long time and stuff like that. So how challenging is it for the people that's being painted on just stay in those positions and stand for 2 hours and stuff like that?
Well, and that's why I like using models over and over again that I know are good, because it's not easy for everybody to stand. And honestly, we do use a couple of models that are life drawing models because they're perfect, because they already know how to stand still, and they have to do, like, sometimes their long poses are 45 minutes where they're standing there and having people sketch them or whatnot. So they already know how to stand still. Also, dancers are another one, like anybody who's taken ballet or things like that, or any kind of exotic dancer too. Those people usually know how to pose for pictures. They know how to do different dance positions to where, like with the ballerinas, like, all right, second position. And then they turn their feet out. And I know exactly how I'm going to paint them because I can have them move their legs in a certain way. But most people who have done some sort of either dance or athletic something or posing, just people that are natural models before behind the camera, are better at standing still and doing this type of stuff. But I mean, honestly, you don't have to stand that still for that long. It's kind of like bursts, like while I'm working, you have to stand still while I'm painting, but then I might be over here mixing paint for a few minutes and they can kind of relax. And we always try to make sure that they have breaks to stretch and move and don't lock your knees kind of thing, and make sure you're hot or cold or whatever, because they are standing there mostly nude. So there's that factor of being hot or cold is a lot more something to worry about when you're, you have a body painted model, and making sure they eat and drink and all of those things. So we definitely take breaks and things, but there's, I don't like sitting still, and I've been painted several times, and I'm in my head going like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? So I know what they feel like.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know.
Yeah, I think it's so cool too that you're artists. Like a lot of the people that's being painted on, like not everybody is, we got people of different body shapes and stuff like that. Because sometimes, with modeling, people assume everybody needs to be a toothpick. So it's really cool that some of your models are just, various sizes and people of all nationalities. You have a lot of men that's doing it as well. So it's very cool that you guys have that diversity.
And honestly, I would love to paint more men, but we still end up having the problem of women will go out to see women get painted. Men will go out to see men get painted, but men will go out to see women get painted. So like both genders will watch a woman get painted, but both genders won't necessarily stand and watch a nude man get painted. And I still find that there's socially a block from men being up on the stage. They just don't get as much attention from other men. I'm losing 50% of my audience if I paint a male. Like, let's say I'm sharing it on social media or I'm doing it live. There's 50% of my audience that may be uncomfortable staring at another male. And it's very frustrating to me because I love painting men. And oftentimes I will paint two. So I'll paint a male and a female so that I can have a male and a female model both together, best of both worlds kind of thing. But sometimes I don't have time to paint both. But I would love to paint more men. You don't have it's not like a roadblock, but boobs come into play when you're planning your design, and they can make it to where you have to really work around them. So with men, their chests are a lot easier to paint because you got closer to a flatter surface than you do with women. So there's just like, I wish that more men, just straight heterosexual men, would be okay with going to see a male model being painted. But that's just frustrating that that's not where we're living yet, like in the world, in America. So and a lot of times they'll get like, oh, well, you always paint, like super buff guys that make us all look bad. And sometimes guys just have the weirdest comments. But if I paint a woman, everybody is there to see it and everybody's talking about how amazing they are. And a lot of times we just lend ourselves to painting women more because if you're in the world of trying to get attention for your art and a female form gets more attention for the art, then that's what we're going to paint because that's what we're here for, is for people to see the art.
Right.
So it's frustrating. And like I said, I try to always include men in the show. We always try to make sure there's a couple male models thrown in for any of the different events that we do. It's just that like society's just not there yet with giving them as much attention as the women. So I wish they would. I wish we could be 50-50 with that. So, and the all shapes and sizes. Definitely some things are harder to paint, some things are not, but some things work better in studio, some things work better live. And so we use all different body types because what looks great live might not look great in a studio, and what looks great at a music concert, might not be the same thing that looks great in a competition or whatnot. So, and like things like at a concert or where I'm being paid to paint per person, anybody can walk up and get painted. And I've got enough experience with painting different people that I can make you look great no matter what size you are. Like, we're just enhancing what you got going on. So painted everybody from probably up to 300 plus pounds with different types of, and some of those are my favorite pieces. I've got Jana here is one of our plus size models that we use a lot. She's one of the fine art models that does the sketching, the live nude models for sketching and things like that. Like, she's a professional model and everybody loves having her out because they're like, wow, not everybody's a toothpick. That's amazing. And like, this one is me painted when I first lost a lot of weight. This was a part of my journey. I lost about 100 pounds over the last 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, I've painted myself and been painted by others all along the way, at my heaviest and at my lightest. That's just document your body as it changes. It doesn't matter if you're heavy or not, or if you're, when I lose 20 pounds, I hear that one a lot. And I'm like, when I paint you, you'll never notice that 20 pounds that you're worried about because I'm going to paint your body. Nobody's looking at your little poochy stomach or something. Like, just get painted now. Don't worry about it. If you want to lose weight, get painted then too. If you gain weight, get painted then too. It doesn't matter.
Right. Tell us about Mandi Illustrations.
Oh, yeah. I call it Mandi Illustrations, kind of like it's one word.
Mandi Illustrations.
So that's just kind of like my other artwork. I don't know if you can see, but I've got some stickers going on the water bottle. But I do these like drawing Zentangle art and just different digital art with kind of like a caricature, things like that. And that's kind of just the art I do for me when I'm sitting down with a sketch pad and I'm drawing, or I do something like that. So I kind of just started a side business Etsy shop and an Instagram that just for me to display my 2D art. So whatever I'm doing on paper or what I'm doing digitally, I sell stickers and I take custom drawings. So if somebody would say like, oh, I want a cute caricature for me and my boyfriend for Valentine's Day, then I take commissions and I do things like a lot of Valentine's Day, Christmas, Mother's Day, like things like that for the digital drawings. And it helps keeps me busy in the downtime. Face paint and body paint's very seasonal. So Christmas is not a big time for face painting. Once the parties kind of wear off, then you're sitting around until January, middle of January, not doing anything. So It helps in the downtime to get other projects done.
And what is Fantasy Fest in Key West?
So Key West has this annual event every right before Halloween, and it is a week-long fantasy costume party where they actually change the laws in the street to be able to allow more nudity, not complete nudity, but more than usual, because Fantasy Fest or Key West itself is a very touristy town with cruise ships. So that week they changed the laws so that you can actually walk around with just pasties and a very tiny thong on. So people will go all out. It's definitely a bucket list kind of event. It's the entire 12 blocks of the most popular street with all of the shops and galleries and bars and tattoo shops is where I usually paint. So it's just the whole thing has a theme, and then each night there might be parties with a different theme. So different depending on where people are going to which parties. But this year I think is all the days for the holiday. So I imagine we're going to be doing a lot of naughty Santas and silly Easter bunnies and things like that. But it's a place where everybody comes together and can just be themselves, just dress up as obnoxiously as you can imagine with the tiniest amount of clothes that you can imagine. And it's people from every age and every shape and size and all over. And it's like the Mardi Gras of Key West kind of thing, where it's a bucket list party thing to do definitely at some point in your life. And for us, we call it the Mecca for body painters because there are so many body painters there from all over the world that go down to Key West every year to paint for it. So we kind of treat it like a reunion of body painters, and we all have breakfast the next day as it's over. We all meet together because we might not see each other any other time of the year except for all in one place in Key West in October. So it's amazing for body painting. We paint all day long, all the time for 5 days straight. It's crazy. We can bring all of our fresh ideas and new things. And you can tell people like, I want to paint this dragon on somebody. And I've been trying to find somebody. They're like, I'll be your dragon. So there's people that already have their outfits planned and they're making appointments in advance. And then there's people who just walk in or like, I just got here. I think I need a costume. And you're like, let me paint you. So it's like the feeling. Everybody is just there just to dress up and have fun and let loose. You've got doctors and lawyers and people that are just there to let loose, and they don't tell their kids they're going. They just go, and then the happiest of people, I would say, that are there.
How challenging has it been to body paint during COVID-19?
I probably didn't paint for about 9 months. I ended up making masks, honestly, but
I bought one from you.
Yeah, I remember I made the WTV logo on there. Yeah. So I ended up making masks and selling like drawings to kids. I was selling coloring packs for people with their kids' names, and I was doing little drawings for them and sending packages in the mail to people with bored children. I assumed at the beginning everybody's children were bored out of their mind. So I made these little coloring packs and sent them out. And then I started making masks, and that was very time consuming for several months. There was nothing else. Like the mask orders were insane, and I didn't get to do anything else. But slowly but surely, we started doing a little bit of, I think my first paint was Black Lives Matter that got me out of COVID. I decided a photographer and a model, we all came together to do a piece that we thought was important at the time to do that. So we did just a private shoot with just the model and the photographer at the house. And that was the first one that got me out of first time painting since COVID had started. And then after that, there was an online instructional body painting event that I was invited to teach at, so virtually. So I had some girls that were ones that were helping me make masks also were been painted. So they came over and I painted them, online for the instructional lesson. And then by the time Halloween came around, there were some people that were wanting to book and go to parties. Even in the midst of all of this, there were some people that wanted to get painted. And I just went to to where they were and wore a mask and just painted the people, private appointments type of things. Because by then I was really hurting for money. I mean, I lost almost a year's worth of income. So recently I've started back at fairs and things like that, but they're all outside. We only are doing foreheads. We're all masked up. I'm vaccinated already. So we've had to change everything over to be able to paint again, but it's still definitely not where it used to be, or, the level of what we were able to do before. We're still very, more hands off, way more sanitizing everything and the chairs and all of that stuff. And then, like I said, just foreheads right now. We're not painting eyes. We're not painting anything below here, so they could still wear their mask while they're getting painted. So yeah, it's changed, but we're just within the last 2 months have gotten back to fairs. But
ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up. Do you practice, as far as your skill set? Like, do you practice, like, how a golfer practice, a basketball player practice? Is it a practice involved in what you do?
I don't practice at home very much because then I'd have to get out all the equipment. Most of the time it just sits in my car waiting for the next gig. But I do practice when I'm at the gigs, when it's slow. I might paint on my leg. I might paint on somebody that's there. A lot of coworkers will paint on each other. Or I mean, a lot of times I just practice things just on people while I'm there. I might do something for the first time at a jam. That's what jams are kind of for, is to practice your stuff. It's not in front of, an audience necessarily yet, or best work that you're doing for a client. So jams are, once we get back into doing those, are a good way to practice. But face painting, I don't spend a lot of time practicing. I've been doing it for 16 years, and there's not much that I can't figure out how to do. If a kid comes up and is like, I really like, this rare Bulbasaur Pokemon, and I just pull up my phone, like, all right, sit down, and I just paint him, whatever. But yeah, I mean, concepts are usually what you practice.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Is there like a process though? Let's say if you're painting somebody, if you, I don't know, just make a color mistake or something like that. Like, how can you fix that on the spot?
I mean, you can baby wipe it off if you make a mistake, but honestly, most of the mistakes that are made are from the person moving while I'm painting them. So if I'm in the middle of painting them and they turn or do something, that's when the mistakes happen. So, you can take a baby wipe and wipe stuff off if I do happen to put a color down that's wrong. But I mean, you have to know your color theory pretty strong to make sure that you're not mixing the colors that are going to make brown or black or something that you're not wanting to do. But I mean, you can always baby wipe stuff off if you do have a little mistake. But I mean, most of the time it's like Bob Ross. You just turn it into one of those little happy accidents that now becomes something else. Like, I guess we're just going to do the shadow there now. So, I mean, a lot of times with face painting, you've only got 2 minutes, 3 minutes with the kids. So if they move and you make a little line, like, all right, that's just where that line's going to go now, bud. So, I mean, other than ones that are like very specific, like Spider-Man, like that's the only one that really gets messed up if you are trying to draw a straight line and they move. All the rest of our designs are very fluid. There might be a flower, vine, or a princess where you can kind of, move that line a little bit over and it's not that big of a deal. Spider-Man's really the only one that's like, if you mess up the little tiny spider line. That's what always happens. I always end up here and I'm doing the lines like this and the kid moves and the line goes straight across their forehead and you're like, oh. Right. So you can try to even it out, or you might just have to wipe it.
What do you love about Florida?
Well, I was born in Florida. I grew up here. I've lived in Florida all my life, just different towns all over, Southwest Florida and Central Florida, and then a little bit on the East Coast for just a short time. But I'm one of those people, I'm a water person. So I love being in the water. I like swimming in the springs more than the beach, but I still like going to the beach. I like exploring. I like the nature. I love being able to have Orlando is just kind of a mecca for everything. It's big enough city to be concerts. It's big enough to have, comedy shows and music and festivals, but it's kind of still small hometowny where I know people and I go to bars and I know the bartender and things like that. So I love watching live comedy. I love watching live music. I love all the arts and the burlesque and the dancing, and I can go to Cirque du Soleil in the morning and go see a live comedy show at a bar with people that are unknown right now in the evening. So I can see the top level entertainment, and then I can see people that are just starting out, and then I can go to the springs in the middle and spend the day, swimming with otters or manatees or something if I want. So I like being in the water. My latest obsession is hunting for shark's teeth that are, fossilized old shark's teeth. So that was my quarantine thing when I was bored and at home and there was nothing else to do. I learned about fossil hunting. So and Florida's, got a great amount of it. So that's what I've been doing with my kids. So Florida's just so diverse.
Yeah, me and my wife's
Yeah,
been coming up there a lot lately. So tell us about any upcoming festivals that you got going on or any upcoming events you have going on for the rest of the year.
Well, right now I'll be teaching art to kids during the summer. I used to teach there when I was a little bit years ago, and they really, really need the help. And my daughter teaches there now. So she kind of begged me to come back to do summer camp. So I'm going to be in Mount Dora doing Center for the Arts summer camp. And then after that, I will be, I think the next biggest festival I have is in August, which is the New York State Fair. And then after that, I usually do Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, which is another huge fair. And then coming back, it'll be October. And then that's when I'll start Fantasy Fest. And then that'll probably be the biggest one. And then after that, there's another one called Earth Day Birthday. I'll probably be doing that, I think is in November. It got rescheduled from April to November. So that's another one where we just do like chess pieces on people that walk up. We have a booth at just a music festival. Yeah, I think New York State Fair is probably the next one I'll be at. And I'm just face painting there, but it is a huge fair with really big names of musicians that come. And it is 21 days long for me, which is a lot.
Oh, wow.
But you know, I've been doing it for 5 years, and we end up go exploring before and after. Last year we went and hunted, went to Herkimer, New York to find Herkimer diamonds. And then we stayed in a cabin in Amish country. So my daughter and I go and we make an adventure out of the whole thing while we're there. And we love escape rooms. So we do escape rooms everywhere we go to. So It's always an adventure.
Yeah. Well, we're going to close out. Before we close out, I want to throw a couple rapid fire questions at you and you just answer to the best of your capability.
All right.
The first one is probably obvious because you live in Florida, but hot or cold?
Hot, definitely.
Hot,
can always get wet.
Your favorite food?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
What's your favorite film?
I don't know, like a silly film is like Robin Hood Men in Tights, but like a more serious film would be like Shawshank Redemption. I think those two I could watch whenever.
Yeah, I just had somebody on the show last week. He was telling me how Shawshank was his favorite film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's definitely a classic. Parasailing or jet ski?
Well, I've done jet ski. I've never done parasailing, but I would like to. But right now I would say jet ski because I know how to operate one of those.
Dark or bright art?
Bright, colorful, bright, like rainbow color, bright. Like not pastel, like bright, like color wheel bright. Definitely.
Who's your favorite artist?
Oh, my favorite artists are like Dali, Banksy. That's my dog's name. I just saw a Van Gogh exhibit, which is really cool. But MC Escher was really amazing for the line work and the perspective and the fooling the eye and things like that. So those would be probably my top artists.
Favorite superhero? I
think maybe like a Supergirl because I guess Superman is cool, but I'm a girl, so like Supergirl. I don't know. I thought flying would always be cool, but I think being invisible would be cool too. So I don't know. Isn't there? It's like an invisible girl from like Fantastic Five or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the first thing you do in the morning is what?
I get up and eat breakfast. I make myself a big omelet with like lots of vegetables and I sit down and I like actually I started that with COVID and I just kept it on because I love getting up and just taking a minute and making myself nice, fresh, healthy breakfast and sitting down and to my computer and getting some stuff done for the day. I don't know. It's like a time for me to gather my thoughts, so I sit and make breakfast every morning.
Yeah.
So I love that part of the day. So.
Well, Mandi, I definitely enjoyed this interview, learning more about you and your work. I think you're very awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. For people that's interested in your services or want to learn more about you, how can they contact you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram. Right now I'm blocked on Facebook for 3 days for pornography. That's one of those things we talked about. Instagram is Mandi Ilene, MandiIlene. Yeah, Instagram's probably the best. I mean, there's Facebook. Mandi Ilene Bodyart is on Facebook. And then, Instagram is really where I put all the stuff. So that's where you get to the first looks at the behind the scenes footage of the shoots that I'm working on that day or something. I'll put those on my story and things. So that's where you can kind of get the latest news for sure.
Well, awesome. Well, Mandi, I thank you so much for being a part of the program today and look forward. I'm going to probably be in Orlando real soon. So I look forward to attending one of your festivals one day.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
I want to thank everybody for their support. Those of you that have been watching all of our podcasts. If you're interested in donating to the Stage is Mine podcast, you can send that two ways via PayPal or Cash App. Our Cash App is Terry from the A, and our PayPal is doubleetvmedia101. Support this machine today to help us continue to do what we're doing. Also, if you're interested in becoming a sponsor of the Stage is Mine podcast, email me today at doubleetv@yahoo.com or call 334-498-5394. Thank you very much. We want to thank you for tuning in to today's program. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell for all things pertaining to the Stage is Mine podcast. Until next time, take care.
Give everything, better yet, give your all. They don't want to see you win, nevertheless, show evolve. Want to see my demise, you can be in for a surprise. As the sun ain't about to set.